Welcome to Your Story Doesn't End Here, the mental health podcast for military and veterans. I'm your host, Rachel, and my mission with this podcast is to be a voice for those who don't have a voice, bring awareness to mental health issues, and provide value and solutions to help make life more abundant.
Thank you so much for coming back for another episode of Your Story Doesn't End Here. Today's guest is Allie. She is originally from Fairfax, Virginia, and has been in the Navy as a gunner's mate for the past 8, almost 9 years. She's currently stationed in California with her hubby, newborn baby boy, and dog, and is hoping to make her way back to the East Coast soon. Allie, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, so I'm going to pass it off to you to share your story, and then we'll just go from there.
All right, so I'm Allie. I've been stationed on both coasts in both Norfolk and as well as California. I can honestly say that I feel like I've seen a lot happen, not just through my own story, and that's why I felt that it was important for me to share my side of what happened with me. Back in 2018, my husband and I were stationed on the same ship at the time, and we decided to get married. And in the fall of 2018, we actually found out that we were pregnant. As I guess a lot of people have experienced in the military, you have your higher ups that are excited for you, and then you also have your higher ups that are very against what's going on in your own personal life, even if it is your own decision. I was fairly lucky to have one chief that really looked out for me. And when I was afraid to tell everyone and come out, she was very supportive. I also, at the time, had completed my sea duty and was waiting to execute my orders that I had. However, now that I was pregnant, obviously things were going to change. Unfortunately, though, a couple months later, we did have a very traumatic miscarriage. And it was one not for the faint of heart. And that's not discrediting anyone's miscarriage, but it was very traumatic for me. And instead of getting the support that I should have been, which was, here's the resources, take your time, let us know how we can help. It was hearing from my detailer, hey, I see that you don't need pregnancy orders. You can now execute your orders to Sigonella in 2 weeks. So not only had I just gone through a very traumatic experience, and was not only feeling the physical pains, the mental turmoil, but I was emotionally very unwell. And I was being told that you're about to leave the country and be away from all your loved ones and your support system that you've been around the whole time. That was very hard to hear. And I was, again, lucky that I had a supportive master chief, because I was married to my husband, I was sent TAD to a different ship in the area, and I was able to seek help through him because he told me, you need time. This is not just a simple thing as you lost the baby and you move forward, and you can go to a different country. And so in that moment, my only real option was to try to seek help for mental health and go to limited duty. And when I went to my primary command, which was the one I was originally stationed on with my husband because I was still attached, the first person I spoke to, the medical officer who would have hopefully granted me to go limited duty, his exact words were, "This sounds like it's just a fresh wound and you need to get back to work." In that moment, all rank and grades, everything just out the window. The fact I had just spent 20-30 minutes crying, telling him every single detail about every single piece of paperwork I had to sign, about my husband having to be caught at home to get to me through an American Red Cross message being sent to the ship while they were out to sea. All of it just meant nothing. And it was just such a slap to my face, because I've seen good leadership and I've had support, and then I have like this one dire moment where I need where I really need someone, I really need time, and I'm being told just get back to work. So I got up and left. I didn't turn around. I didn't care. It was a captain, and I just kept walking, and I completely left the ship. Didn't even talk to my husband on the way out. Didn't talk to anyone. And I remember I got home and I was just crying and crying and crying. Eventually my husband came home and he asked me what happened, and I told him. And I had to make that decision of whether I kind of accept things or if I keep fighting. And the next day, I told my master chief at the command I was TAD to what happened. And side note, I was extremely lucky to have this master chief with me because he was actually at the command I was on before. And he had actually sent me TAD purposely to this command because he knew that it's better for me not to like go without any support. It was the ship I had been on before. I had friends there, and he was transferring there for his retirement. And I thank God every day that he was there, because in that moment, he's like, you need to go to the ship psych here, and you need to go fight for your mental health, because otherwise you're about to potentially go to another country and be by yourself for a long time. Because at that moment, my co-location wasn't activated yet either. So I went and saw the ship psych I saw him, I think, almost every day for 3 weeks until he finally diagnosed me. And he told me, no, like you're going to go LIMDU for mental health. You're not going to go to Sigonella. And at that moment, it became a trying to process me out of those orders and out of my gunner's mate community. The detailer I had at the time was the communication was not well. And it was a constant battle of me continuing to see ship psych, my master chief calling, a senior chief calling, my first class calling, me calling. We were all calling her every single day for months. And by the time I finally was able to get in contact with her, after all the emails, all the phone calls, she asked me if I still needed pregnancy orders. And again, that was another big slap to the face. The fact that just to get some help, it's been such an uphill battle. And by the time I was finally just like cut out of my community so I can go into a detailer from limited duty orders, I was 4 months into my 6-month LIMDU order period. And so again, by the stroke of fate, I guess, I got sent to one of the nearby naval hospitals. As it started as a little joke, but I ended up working there as the CO's aide. I sarcastically told a first class, that sounds cool, when he said that the CMC needed a new aide. And instead I was given to be the CO's aide, which I 1000% am so grateful for, because I had never worked in something so administrative side, I guess. And I've also got to see a whole different side of things, especially at a medical hospital where there's a lot of other LIMDU cases, a lot of other LIMDU people going through the same struggles as me, as trying to get help, and for some reason being constantly put to the side and shoved away. And it shouldn't be like that. You shouldn't have to get a whole crowd of people to cry with you saying like, I need help, in order to get someone to notice. And the fact that I was just constantly kind of going through the motions of just like a slow process when it shouldn't even have been that slow. It was ridiculous to me. And I had 2 different captains that I've worked for while I was there, because I ended up being there almost a year. The first one, he was amazing in the sense that I did have to chauffeur the captain around when they had certain meetings off base. And I told him my story, and he asked me if I had ever thought about going to the town hall meetings they had, because no one really talked about their struggles to even get help and to even go through the process of getting help and having that much struggles. He was completely blindsided. And what I really liked about this hospital too is every month they met with people of all grades, all different departments, including from limited duty people. And they had no idea that people were even struggling to get help and even struggling to get through the process. And he was very supportive in the fact of me going to let other people know what I went through to make it more of a scene. He did retire, and I then worked for another captain, and it was an all-female triad, which was a very empowering thing to be a part of. And she also heard my story, and I gave her a lot of credit because she made it very clear to check on me and to get more limited duty sailors to her monthly meetings to make sure that no one was being screwed over in the process, because it was crazy to see the masses of enlisted personnel that were all there for LIMDU, whether it was for physical reasons or mental health. And it was to the point that there was actually like a lot of people kind of sitting in their cars waiting for an appointment all day, just mustering here and there, because we have all different limitations, and it was really hard. And a lot of people also were afraid to go LIMDU because, I mean, for me, I'm a gunner's mate, like it's not that I wasn't in my situation. I wasn't feeling suicidal 100%. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was grieving and I was hurting and I didn't know how to get through it. And I was terrified of losing my rate. And I feel like that happens to a lot of people, which is really sad that we're so focused on, oh my God, I can lose my job, instead of, oh my God, I can potentially lose myself, lose my life. And that's something that the second captain I worked for, that she had to kind of drill into my head. Like, this is not being in the military. It's not normal. Even if it's our new normal for us, a lot of the stuff we do is not normal. The conditions we work in, it's not normal. And the fact that I was being expected to act like losing a baby, especially in the way that I did, that it was considered to be normal and just to get on with it. It's not okay. And I think that was the first time I really realized I don't think any of us are really okay. And the fact that I was so lucky in the sense of when I did have help, they really fought for me. Like, that truly touched my heart. They were able to sign me up to meet with a therapist, a civilian therapist, at the hospital every day. I was checked on every day. For the first time in my life, I was told that 100% my chain of command had to support me for every appointment. Couldn't get any runarounds, or why did you choose this time? Why did you choose that day? Why can't you go a little later? I didn't get any of that. And that's also because they didn't really have a choice. But even then, we've all, I feel like, been through a situation where we haven't had a choice and had to take a certain appointment, and we've gotten some kind of pushback from our chain of command, and it shouldn't be that way. Well, flash forward through my LIMDU period. I'm very thankful for what I had, because I really do think that I was losing myself really bad and I was in a really dark place. And I'm really grateful for everyone that I met along the way. And then I got transferred out here to sunny California. My command is very small from what I'm used to, but at the same time, very, very busy. And not too long from being there, I actually had a friend that came to the command. I didn't know her yet at the moment, but I knew that there was something going on as to why she was coming to the command. I had my little theories, but I didn't pry. And then I was LPO at the time, and I had my chief, and I had my my LT, and we all kind of brought her into the office to meet with her and kind of talk to her and see what her what, like, not why she was there, but just what her realm of work was going to be while she was there, knowing that she was going to have limitations, and just kind of try to figure out what was going on. And she was very honest with us right away and told us she just had a miscarriage. She was also a gunner's mate, and she was very fixated on the fact that she didn't want to get in trouble and she didn't want to lose her rate. And in that moment, I looked at her and I realized, like, oh my God, like, this was me a year ago, like, too fixated on the fact that I could lose my job instead of getting help. And so I told her right away, I'm like, no, like, this is very traumatic for you. Like, I can see it. Like, I literally just went through this and I'm here now. I'm working in my rate again. And I was cleared, it's you you can't get better if you don't take the time to heal, whether it's seeking help in the Navy, whether it's seeking help civilian side, or seeking help within yourself or your own support group. And I sat with her and I didn't plead with her, but I told her, for the most part, the very gruesome details of what happened with me. She told me what happened with her, and we instantly bonded. And I was able to pretty much convince her to take her time and to take the mental health LIMDU that was offered to her. She did. And what's crazy, and I really do think that we were brought together for this, because 2 months later, she found out she was pregnant. And a couple weeks later, I found out I was pregnant. And now here we are, way later, and we both have our rainbow babies. And it was terrifying being pregnant together, because we both were so scared. But it was so nice to have someone to go through it with. And I think that's what is important, because a lot of people, they lock down because they feel like they have no one else to go to. They feel like they're either going to get pushed back, or even if they try the process, it's going to be super slow to the point of what's the point? Or they're afraid that no one else is going through it the way they have. And yes, it's awful, but in a sense, we do have to fight for ourselves more than the average person. You can't just be like, I need help, and then people jump all over it, which is sad, which is why I thought it was super important to come here and tell my story. Because had I not had my mental health LIMDU period, had I not had the support of the master chief, senior chief, and first class calling the detailer with me every single day, had I not had 2 captains sympathizing with me and telling me that what happened should have never happened as far as the process, if I didn't have I consider her my sister, like, if I didn't have her to go through this pregnancy and to also remind me of what it felt like going through the pain, and now holding our rainbow babies, I don't know what I would have done. And I think it's very important to share your stories with each other, to make others feel less alone, and to create that family, because at the end of the day, no one should ever suffer in silence.
Well, I appreciate you sharing your story, Allie. I think your story is so beautiful, and it's incredible how it really turned around for you in finding another female who, crazily enough, was the same rate and in a similar situation as you. I just find so much beauty in that. So thank you for sharing. I really want to talk about the Navy's process when it comes to miscarriages, because I have heard so many different stories from different women about the process. Some women get a couple of days off and then go back to work. Some women get more time off. Is there like a set in stone process, or how was your experience? I mean, I guess as much as you want to share how your experience was when going through that in the Navy.
So, as far as I'm aware, there is no set in stone process. And I think that's a huge problem because it's advertised everywhere. It happens to 1 in 5, 1 in 4 of us. So there should be a process. And for me, I'll be completely honest, I'm at a good point. Trigger warning for anyone listening, because I do understand that there are certain triggers. But my first appointment took a lot longer for me to get seen through the Navy. And so when I finally went, I was pretty much told that my baby didn't have a heartbeat. And, you're so excited for that first appointment, and to hear that, you go in shock. You don't really understand what's going on. And then it becomes a conversation of, what do you want to do? Do you want to let nature take its course, or do you want to have pretty much a surgical or medical abortion? And for me, I was in shock, and they told me pretty much at that moment, here's SIQ, take 2 days, come back, take some time to make this decision. And I was really lucky with the Master Chief I had, because again, he was at my prior command, and my husband was on watch for security. And he actually, when I told him what was going on, because I was supposed to go back to work and my phone was being blown up, and I told him what was going on, he, instead of replying back to me, he called the ship and got my husband off security. His secco walked over to him and was like, you need to download and you need to go home to your wife. He had no idea what was going on yet, but he got home to me and he was able to be with me while I processed things. But 2 days later, I went in. I originally signed up for a DNC, which is to have it removed surgically. I chickened out the night before, and we decided to medically induce my miscarriage at home and be together in the comfort of our own safe space. And I was told I was going to have 2 weeks of convalescence leave, which I did. What happened to me, though, was that when I thought I miscarried, I didn't. And he went out to sea 2 days afterwards. And 2 days after that, my body pretty much went into shock. And I had to go to the ER, where I found out I hadn't passed it. And that's when it was just a really traumatic long night, between a lot of medicine and a lot of trying to get a hold of people, trying to get a hold of my husband on the ship. And at the end of the day, when everything was finally over, it was still a question of, how do we take care of her? My Master Chief just straight up told me, don't even worry about it. We're going to start over your 2 weeks of convalescence leave. But at the same time, it doesn't happen like that for a lot of people. And I think that's the sad thing that I've come to realize over time.
So as far as your husband, was there any sort of, I guess, maybe not a convalescent leave period, but was there any kind of leave that they were able to give to him to support you throughout that time?
So we got really lucky in the sense that, because it happened when he was out to sea, we were lucky that in the moment when my American Red Cross message was sent over, they decided that they were going to fly him home. So when he got home, the ship was still out, and they didn't give him convalescence leave, but they made him the duty driver, which was better than nothing in my point of view, because for the most part, he was able to be with me and stick to my side.
From a mental health perspective, when you found out that this traumatic event was happening, were any kind of mental health services offered to you at all?
That's the sad part. Nothing was really offered to me. It was more of a, hey, this is what's going on. you need to make a decision on how to pass it. And I was in complete shock. Again, my husband was on watch when everything was happening, and I was very lucky that last second I had grabbed my friend Lauren to be with me, and she was able to help me process what was going on, because I was in shock and being told the different avenues of what we could do, but was not really given any time to sit there and process, or to really ask questions, or ask if I can talk to anyone.
Wow, that's because I had no idea how the process went for miscarriages. So I'm actually learning a lot about how that is. And I think that that is absolutely awful the way that it's handled in the military, or in the Navy specifically. If you were in charge of the Navy, we'll say, what would you suggest to make this process better for women and men even?
I think people need to be able to listen more, and not only listen, but to be able to stand up for one another. At the command I'm at, I have been kind of lucky. I'll admit I've been very lucky with a lot of the things I've gone through, and like some of the people I've had, even though I've had a lot of pushback. But I actually got to escort the MCPON when he came to see our command and our subordinate units. And one of the girls asked him, like, what are you going to take away from all this? And he's like, it touched my heart. And I think it's very important, because he hit it on a lot of what females go through in the military. And he said, at the end of the day, after all of this, I know that I'm going to walk away, and I'm going to hope that I've made a difference, especially because I have seen how difficult it has been and how much it has cost families for females. But the one thing that I will walk away regretting is that not only did I try to help others, but it costs me everything, and I'll walk away alone. And he pretty much hit it on the head, saying that, because of how the culture is, he's lost his family. He's going to walk away knowing he made a difference in some ways, but he lost his family in the process. And he spoke to us about how a lot of females, we get out because we don't want it to affect our children. And I think for me, I want to be able to make sure that you feel the support that you need, that you, at least if you don't know what the resources are, you know who to turn to, and you don't get the weird looks, you don't get the pushback when you try to get the help, you don't get the, oh, you need to move your appointment. No. If you need help, you should be able to seek the help. It doesn't matter what anyone other or person thinks, because they're not going through it. They don't know what else you've been through in life, and you shouldn't be judged off of that.
Well, Allie, I appreciate you so much for coming on here today and sharing your story, and just giving us some insight into what life is like for women in the Navy who experience miscarriages and mistreatment because of it. And we can only hope that things change from here. But again, I appreciate you. You're incredible. And thank you for sharing your story.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for taking the time to listen in today. Each week, I'll be bringing you value in the mental health space and its direct impact on service members and veterans. If you feel you personally got value today from this episode, it would mean the world to me if you would leave a 5-star rating and review and share this to your audience. Until next time, remember, your story matters, your mental health matters, and your story doesn't end here.